ゴジラマイナスワン。
あれがゴジラ。
So, I just got back from watching Godzilla Minus One for the second time. I watched it Friday evening, November 3rd, when it came out, and then I watched it again tonight on Sunday. So, this is not really a first impressions video, but I did want to give some thoughts. I definitely don't want to spoil anything because the movie does not come out globally until December 1st, I believe. But yeah, it's good. I'll say that it's really good actually. I actually really enjoyed Shin Godzilla, so I'm still not sure if I like this more or if I liked Shin Godzilla more. But this would definitely be in my top 5 Godzilla movies without question. Absolutely. No question about it. It's up there. I think the coolest thing about this movie is the setting. It takes place between 1945 and 1947 Japan, so it's like a post World War II Japan, which you can imagine is quite gloomy actually. There's actually a scene. Of course, I'm not going to spoil the movie, but there's a scene early on when it just shows our main character return home, basically, and yeah, I choked up a little just because, and there's no dialogue. It's just the state of his home when he returns. It kind of hits you, I think, pretty hard. And I think they did a great job with making it look quite convincing. Of course, I wasn't around in the 40s, and I wasn't in Japan at that time either. But I think the costumes and the set designs and everything, it looks good to me. I'm sure there's some history buffs that are gonna have a lot of things to complain about, but I think for a general audience, it's probably quite convincing. So yeah, as far as like the visuals, it looks really good. Like it's a really good looking movie. Like surprisingly so, even. Apparently, this was like a $15 million budget movie, which I think was the same for Shin Godzilla. And just for comparison, I think the 2014 legendary Godzilla movie was about $160 million. So there's a huge gap there, like a massive gap. And yeah, they worked with what they had quite well. There is one scene that I think unfortunately does not hold up. It probably would have been the most expensive scene in the movie too, so that's probably part of the issue. I think you've probably seen some of it in the trailer. Godzilla's in Ginza basically, so like in the city. And yeah, there are a few shots there where the animation is not quite convincing, but it definitely did not take me out of the experience. But on the other hand, there are a lot of shots, especially when Godzilla's like in the ocean, where it looks amazing. The idea that they only spent, I mean, $15 million is a lot of money, but by comparison, I feel like there's a lot of shots in this movie that are like better than the Hollywood movies, and they're working with a lot less. I would say Shin Godzilla is consistently good looking, like more consistently good looking, whereas Minus One I think looks great all the time, with the exception of the one time when it didn't look that great. But this is a period piece, so I think a lot of the budget would have gone towards just making a believable 1940s Japan. So I'm willing to forgive it. It's possible they could update those visuals as well, like in a DVD or Blu-ray release. But even if they didn't, I don't think it's a deal breaker at all. The music in this movie is great as well. Of course, you have the classics, the Akira Ifukube tracks. There's a handful of those in there, but the original score for this movie is actually really good. It does a good job of telling you how to feel, I guess I should say. And yeah, there are a few scenes, like the scene I mentioned before, it's just music and visuals and no dialogue, but it's still quite powerful. So as far as Godzilla's design in this movie. He's looking a lot closer to his traditional self. He's chunky. He's got weird arms. He's got massive legs and a long tail. It's exactly what you would expect, I think, which is good. Shin Godzilla, I think, was quite different in many ways, but this is definitely closer to Godzillas we've seen before. And it's completely CG, again, and there's no person in a suit. I'm not even sure if there's any motion capture this time. He looks good. He looks great. He looks great, but he maybe does not appear in the movie as much as I know some people would like. And yeah, I'm one of those people. I was one of those people who complained about 2014 Godzilla. It was a pretty good movie, not bad at all, but we need way more Godzilla in our Godzilla movies. This one, I think, he probably has a similar amount of screen time. That being said, most of the time off screen is still about Godzilla. Like, how do we beat him? Trauma he's caused, the damage he's done. There are human characters with their own kind of subplots, but it's not like the legendary films where I think they've gone too far with the focus on the human characters. We got kids running around. I don't know what's going on in those movies anymore. It's way more focused on a handful of characters, and their story is directly related to Godzilla for the most part. Yeah, I'd say there are basically 3 or 4 main characters, I would say, and yeah, they all do a great job. There's actually a kid in this movie too that's really cute. I don't think she's doing any acting though, just being a kid. Yeah, I think the performances were great. I definitely didn't cry, but I am a crier, so there was once or twice when I almost did, but not quite. But there were definitely other people in the theater who seemed to be more moved than I was, so that was surprising, and I guess that's something to look out for. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the story, but I will say that it's nothing surprising. It's a pretty standard story. You could probably imagine it just from the trailer, if we're being honest. You've got Godzilla comes, there's some inspirational speeches, there's some destruction. You hit all the beats. But it's executed well, and the actors all do a very good job, so it's not a negative point against the movie at all. So I don't want to say too much more because I want to avoid spoiling the movie. But yeah, I said top 5 before, but it may even be in my top 3 Godzilla movies of all time. The only really flaw, I would say, and it's not even a flaw, I think I would love to see this movie with a $160 million budget, for example. There are definitely a few scenes where you can kind of see the budget limitations. I think Shin Godzilla was more consistently impressive visually, and they kind of had a similar budget. But again, this is a period piece, and I think it's done extremely well. And yeah, those tend to be more expensive. So overall, I think if you're a fan of Godzilla, you're watching this movie anyway. And I think if you're a fan of the Toho Godzilla or the legendary Godzilla, this is probably going to be enjoyable for you. There are a handful of issues I had with the plot of the movie, but I'm not even going to go into those now. So possibly in the future, I'll think about making a video that goes into more detail. But what I was thinking about doing is rewatching every Godzilla movie. I've seen all of them with the exception of the animated ones that came out recently. I think on Netflix. I have not seen any of those movies, but I was thinking about going through and watching every Godzilla movie and kind of doing a rating and maybe like a tier list and ultimately watch this one again and then kind of rate them compared to each other. But yeah, if you'd be interested in seeing that, go ahead and subscribe. This is definitely not the first video I intended to upload, but it was kind of fresh in my head since I literally just got out of the theater and, I wanted to get the thoughts out. So if you've listened this far, I appreciate it. I have a couple of videos cooking right now. I can't say for certain when those will be out. I can say that they're not Godzilla related, unfortunately. But I do intend to review the movies as well as play a few of the Godzilla games. So if you'd be interested in that, let me know. Enjoy your day, enjoy your evening, enjoy the movie when you eventually see it.